we need to talk about Caitlyn Clark.
Yep.
So Caitlyn Clark of Iowa, but now playing for Indiana in the WNBA, gets honored in time as the athlete of the year. I don't know. I guess they need a lot of covers or something. I mean, whatever. They just want people who are going to sell their shitty magazine. So she gets selected as athlete of the year. And what does Caitlyn Clark do? Like this woman who's a superstar. She's the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. And she's become a phenom in part because the players of the WNBA can't fucking stand her. Why? Mm-hmm. Because she's white. It's abject, absolute racism. It's total racism. And one of the things that's been admirable about Caitlyn is she just continues to play her game and put points on the board. And she does very well, and she wins games, and she puts butts in the seats, and she sells tickets, and she gets people tuning in on television. And all really we want to hear from anybody about this is thank you. Thank you to Caitlyn Clark for making our league relevant and so on. But instead, she's been bullied repeatedly by the players in this league. She's been assaulted physically. She's been scratched in the eye. And I mean, all of this is on camera. We've covered it repeatedly on the show. So she gets this honor. And all she has to do is continue staying above it. Thank you. I'm grateful. Love being in the WNBA, and I love my colleagues who I play with, my teammates. That's it. Instead, she decides to go racial. And what she says is she feels the need to acknowledge her white privilege. Basically, she's sorry she's white. She feels really bad about it, though, so you should give her a pass. And then she makes a point of saying the ones we really need to be celebrating are the black women on whose backs this league was built, which I have to tell you is so condescending.
It really is.
It's true that most of these black women have been bullying her and want her to understand it's their league. Hello, you don't own the league. Blacks don't own the league, just like whites don't own tennis or golf. Nobody owns the league. This is America. Anybody can play if they're good enough. But they want her on the knee. You'll bend the knee and you'll apologize for being white, and you will suck up to the black women who built this league before you, or you will be beaten. You will be assaulted, and you will be bullied with no friends. So she does it. She finally did it. She bent the knee, self-flagellated over white privilege, and look at the black women in this league. And I have to tell you, if I were a black woman in that league, I think I'd say, screw you. Because don't treat me like I am the ugly stepsister and you are Cinderella, and no prince is going to look at me unless Cinderella says, oh, give her a little time. Oh, put her in the spotlight for a moment. I would be offended, genuinely offended by her. Like, look over there. Look at them. They're not white. They did a lot too. And here's the other thing. It's totally insincere. And here's how you know it's totally insincere. Because if Caitlyn Clark really felt uncomfortable in the spotlight as the newbie who's white, because white people didn't build the league, she wouldn't have said yes to being Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year. So either walk the walk or don't. But what you're doing here is trying to have it both ways. You're too cute by half, and you've managed to piss off your fan base. Go ahead and look at my Twitter feed and the comments under my tweet on this. She's lost thousands of fans, maybe more, as a result of this. And you will never appease the race bullies in the WNBA, ever, because you're too popular, you're too talented, and too white. That's it.
Well, I think you completely nailed it. As soon as I saw that statement from her, I was incensed, because it was only a couple of days earlier I'd been telling Duncan's from Indiana. I was like, wow, I see all these clips of this player you've got. She's amazing. She's done great. And I've been following during the season her getting bullied by all these other players who are jealous of her, who are jealous of her success. And meanwhile, these statistics would come out where all the road games where she plays sell out. They're the best selling games of the season is when she comes to town. And for her to turn around and bend the knee to these people who've been bullying her, like you said, it's never going to be enough. It's not just her trying to get these people to like her who've been mean to her. It's her complete betrayal of her fan base. People, like, for years and years, men have been complaining that ESPN doesn't cover sports. They cover critical race theory, and they're sick of it. People watch sports for escapism, to see competition. Caitlyn Clark was an inspiration to so many of my friends' daughters. And for her to go out and say something like this, to try to, like you said, being like, oh, no, 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 Black players need me as a white savior to bring them and highlight them. This racist equity system, all it does is divide Americans. And the result of this election, in large part, was Americans saying, we're tired of that. We've had enough of that. And Caitlyn Clark's going right back to that.
And DEI is
so right.
DEI is a nonsense thing, but can you think of any profession in which it's more nonsense than athletic competition, in which there are statistics and points scored? It's such a preposterous thing to claim somebody has privilege in a competition of athletics. And not to mention the fact of, you would never say something like that about the NBA, where there are hundreds of Black superstars paid millions and millions of dollars. And by the way, that NBA subsidizes the entire WNBA. Yeah, right. So, and she's walking around talking about her white privilege. It's insane.
Well, here's the other thing, Duncan. Here's the other question. I don't remember Serena Williams apologizing for her Blackness in tennis, which had been dominated mostly by whites. I don't remember Tiger Woods apologizing for his Blackness in the, PGA, which was dominated by whites. No one would even think of such a thing. They celebrated this new figure in sports who maybe didn't look like all the other figures they knew. They thought it was great. He was to be celebrated. That's how normal people have responded to Caitlyn.
What they all had in common is that they fundamentally changed the sport, and they brought casual fans into the sport to become lifelong fans of the sport. It didn't matter what the color of their skin was. That's what Tiger Woods did to golf. That's what Caitlyn Clark did to the WNBA. That's the sort of excellence that should be celebrated. And it's so weird to me that we had that entire ideology fail at the ballot box a few weeks ago, and now she's like the last one to get the memo. It's crazy.
Yeah,
imagine a world. We got to keep this going because it's like I'm so fired up about it. But imagine a world in which Serena and Venus take over tennis, they crush, and the thought pieces that are being written or the comments that they are required to say are, I just want to acknowledge that tennis was built on the back of white people like Chrissy Everett. And Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King. And, I have Black privilege in being here because of my however she wants to attribute that. It wasn't explained by Caitlyn either, exactly how her white privilege got her some more attention in the league. That's the theory by some racists, that the only reason we want to watch Caitlyn is because she's white and we can't stand watching the Blacks, but we'll watch the white, which is absurd. She's by far the best. The stats prove it. That's why she's so popular. But in what world would we ever be comfortable saying to these Black superstars, you better acknowledge the backs on whose, bodies tennis and golf and whatever white sport you can think of was built? I mean, it's an absurdity. It's racist on its face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, the thing that really strikes me, if you think about Time Magazine, they don't care about sports. It's a religious tract for the left-wing lunacy in this country. And what they care about is driving their politics forward. There are thousands of athletes who have had great years that they could highlight if they cared about highlighting a top athlete. Caitlyn Clark is one of them. But this story and naming her really strikes me is something that was negotiated between her PR agent and Time Magazine, where the agreement was she would say what the left wanted to hear, and in exchange, she's named athlete.
Well, this is part of the sports culture, and it has been here for the last 5 or 6 years, that these are the kind of things that you get into when you do these sort of quote unquote mainstream pieces. But I think there's something that's much larger than all of this, and one of the reasons why we're so irritated about it is this election. You saw huge participation and definitive in how they came down amongst Gen X and older millennials. And one of the big pieces of that, in my view, is that we all kind of grew up in a social atmosphere where you just didn't think of people in white buckets and black buckets. And like all my heroes were young Black athletes. And I never thought about that.
Yeah, when I watched Family Matters, it wasn't like, oh, I'm watching the Black sitcom.
Yeah.
You never thought about that as a kid.
Like the Cosby Show.
Cosby Show.
Like, you're like, you weren't like, oh man, well, let's watch the Black Show tonight. Like it just never had, that's not how we grew up. And somehow over the last 10 years, all of that changed. And it took people a while to try to figure out how and why and what they could do about it. In this election, they finally said, fuck you. We are not doing this anymore. We are not going to discriminate people. We are not going to evaluate their character or their worth based on their skin color. We're not doing any of that anymore. And the extent that DEI and all of those people that want to push that agenda are doing that to us, we're going to throw your asses out. And that's exactly what they did. And so now you get the sports agents and all this stuff that apparently didn't get the memo. And my bet is, Megyn, I think you're talking about like a 22-year-old young woman who's sort of thrust into this cultural icon. I bet 5 years from now she's going to wish she had that back. And I don't think that. I don't think that. I mean,
right now, what we know about Caitlyn Clark is she's reportedly dating some very, very woke leftist. But what we know about her is she liked Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris. So she seems to be telegraphing something about her politics, even though she doesn't often tweet or post about politics. It seems pretty clear she was in that lane hoping Kamala Harris got elected, though when asked about it, she tried to play it off as she was just, really in favor of people informing themselves about the issues and making sure they vote. Okay, sure. Yeah. There isn't a Trump voter in the world that would have liked the Taylor Swift endorsement of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So she definitely is a Democrat and probably a leftist who believes this crap. I have to think she believes in this crap. For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, waiting for this election, we can finally exhale. Work can now be done on the major issues this country's facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. The fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled. So the strategy for you probably remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control, so it can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Text MK to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold. Plus, right now you will receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold and text MK to 989898 to claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.